This is part 3 of an ongoing series, one of the best games of no retreat the Russian front that I've ever played. Welcome to Legendary Tactics. The rest of 1941 brought a lot of bad weather, a lot of mud, and a lot of snow, and that's going to be my saving grace. Finally, the bad weather is here, and that's going to give me a welcome respite. And basically, the German player is limited in his movements, as is the Russian, but it's less impactful. The Panzers are a little more bogged down, which is so helpful. As my opponent points out, it's just a mere 4 victory points away from sudden death in turn 3. It's going to take a lot to get there, but he's not that far off. So anyway, he checks supply and draws his cards and begins to move. So you can see taking Kiev, which gives him another victory point. The Panzers are going to loop around and start to chip away at the forces protecting Moscow. And luckily that one unit has held up in Riga. That's been a real saving grace. It means that I've been able to delay the assault on Leningrad a little bit. And the rest of it is positioning. He can't quite reach the cities he was hoping to get to, but his attacks go down. And from here we'll see what counterblows I have in store for him. He's definitely trying to break up my little defense towards Leningrad area. It means his forces are a little bit splintered, and you can actually see them almost dividing out into the north, central, and south. I need to shore up the south. That is absolutely a must in my next turn. I've got a fair number of forces in the north, maybe too many, I'm not sure. I do have to hold Moscow at the end of the day, so we'll see how well this holds. I'm actually going to play a counterblow and see if I can't split up his energies in attacking Moscow and maybe hopefully get either an exchange result or a no effect result that can buy me a bit of time. Winter's going to set in next turn, and that has fairly similar effects. Not as good as mud, but fairly similar effects, which I can take advantage of. We'll start in the south. The battle down here is 13 on 5. It ends up being 2 on 1. He's going to use a blitz marker to cancel out my city advantage. And the roll is a 2, which is a counterblow. Not the best result, maybe, of course, but at least I hold the city and hold him up for one more turn. Tula, this counterblow here, is 12 on 4, which is 3 on 1. There's no terrain advantages for that because of the counterblow. And he rolls a 1, which causes a counterblow in his space. Versus Southwest, he's only got the 9th Army to attack that piece. So that's going to be 4 on 5. It's a 1 on 2, -1 for the woods. So that actually creates a counterblow with that with his roll. And then up north, he's going to use this other blitz marker to influence this outcome. In the north, 11 on 3 is 3 on 1, very close to 4 on 1, but he uses the blitz marker, rolls a 4, defender shattered. So the unit ends up having to escape. The northwest unit escapes and then is shattered. At least he'll be back next turn for free, which is okay. And he will move into Riga, which is unfortunate. They held out very well. And that is his turn. So lots of counterblows to deal with in my turn, but at least I wasn't forced to retreat, and he didn't get any opportunity to push an inch further because that would have been... So there's lots of counterblows here to deal with, but I think that we can... So there's lots of counterblows to deal with, but I think we can be happy with the fact that we didn't have to retreat very much. We're able to hold the line and stall until my reinforcements arrive this turn. All right, it's my turn. Let's see what we can do. Get my cards. Everyone's in supply, but now it's the flip step in the organization phase, which is great. I now can spend cards to fortify units, and one of the first ones I'm going to fortify is, of course, Leningrad. I'm going to take that, discard a card, and flip that guy from a 3 to a 5, which is excellent. That makes it a little bit harder for him to get a hold there. I'm going to flip Moscow as well as soon as I get the chance, but for the time being, it's okay. We're going to flip that the next opportunity we get next turn. Going to place some reinforcements. Obviously, need to make sure that we are shoring up that southern flank. And we brought that the shattered unit back and brought that. So you can see we've got a line stretching from Sevastopol in the south with the zones of control. It's very tenuous, but at least we can say we've got a line all the way north, almost to Leningrad. There's a little gap there in the swamp, but you know, just between Leningrad and that unit on the in Kalinin. But we've got a line, and that's the first time I think we could say that this game, because we've finally got enough units on the board to make a difference. So I'm going to move move one unit into the rail box and basically slowly begin to kind of retreat a little bit in the north, and I'm going to see if I can't, lock down the. I mean, it might be an opportunity to encircle a little bit here, at least put some pressure on. I doubt we'll be able to actually encircle those panzers; they're just too strong. But we can, give it a go. And I play my card. Now this card is for whatever reason the Vassal module has saved the cards incorrectly. So this card will not show properly on this example. So the card that I played was the one that allowed me to see what I'm dealing with his hand, and I can discard one of them, and I'm going to discard the surprise attack. I mean, obviously there'd be a lot more that I'd love to discard, but unfortunately the card only allows me to hit one of them. So first of all, the West versus the 8th Army. Let me zoom in here. So this is in right around the Moscow here. I'm going to deal with this counterblow. It's one-on-one. There's no terrain modifiers. I luckily get a 6, which is defender retreat, so I force him to go back. And I've got an interesting little pincer maneuver going on. Not very strong, but at least I'm putting the pressure on those panzers. They're going to have to break out to get to some supply soon, which is excellent. Then my attacks there, it's basically a 1-on-1, a 12-on-12. I did the math exactly right there. I roll a 3, which has no effect. And then finally down in the south, the attack there, sorry, it's a counter blow. So he has 6, so it's 5-on-6, which is 1-on-2. I roll a 6, luckily get a defender retreat. So some lucky rolling there, pushed him back and managed to hold the line and cause a bit of pressure here in the center with Moscow, with those panzers. I mean, I don't think they'll have a big trouble breaking out of that encirclement, but it does mean a bit of distraction and perhaps the sense that maybe they moved too far too fast, which is great. So then I get hit by a card. In this case, it is one that is displayed correctly. So I need to re-roll the battle and roll a 3. That was a re-roll of the battle in the middle, I believe, the Panzers, the second and fourth Panzers. So no effect, and basically the counterblows have been disposed with, and all in all, a very solid turn. Now I have one unit in the rail movement box that I can detrain. So the question is where. Um, we could potentially shore up the south again. I kind of like that hill between Leningrad and Moscow, the one near Kalinin. So I'm thinking about where the best spot is, but I think ultimately I'm going to shore up that line in the south, see if just in case the Panzers break out, I've got another unit there to kind of slow them down if they're trying to sneak through to get to any of the cities. If they have any sort of a breakthrough, I just want to make sure that I've got that shored up. Also, he's close enough to Moscow that he can reinforce. So that's my hope anyway. And winter now begins. Winter is here, and the Germans are on the move. They check their supply, and their friend in the Ninth Army is helping keep the supplies coming to the Panzers. They're in a bit of a sticky situation, so the Germans are going to get on the move. They're going to push a little bit against my position in Leningrad, and then they are going to sweep south, and with a little help from their friends, are able to extricate the Panzers out of that near encirclement, and then after that they begin to sweep across to start surrounding the cities that I'm in. And it's a bit of a sticky situation for me as well, but they've only got one attack on Kharkov, so hopefully I can hold things for the next turn as well. But I do have a trick up my sleeve, and that is to play this card. Now it's not going to display properly on the Vassal here for whatever reason, but basically it's a card that gives me a couple of counterblows. I'm going to put one near Moscow and the other one down in this city starting with D that I cannot pronounce, and that's basically my attempt to get out of that encirclement without being out of supply. So I'm hoping to get either a shattered or a retreat result, which is going to mean that I'm going to be able to basically die without being out of supply. So if I die when I'm out of supply, that's going to give him a victory point, which I do not want to do. So that's my ploy there. We're going to begin with the Battle of Kharkov. That's a 12 on 2 with a shift. And I luck out and they roll an exchange. An exchange result is really one of the best results for the Russians in the early game, especially because yes, I do lose my unit into the destroyed units box, but I do some damage, and those casualties add up over the course of the game. Anytime you can, hit a German unit like that, just means it's going to be costly for them to restore those combat points, and it's slowly going to wear the German army down. So that is the result there. And this is where I decide to use my cadre to again just shore up that city and hang on to that position. Now here the battle near Moscow. Basically it's a 9 on 5 shifted, so it ends up being a 1 on 1. The roll is 4. It's a counterblow, which is an okay result. I don't like having those counterblows too close to a critical square like Moscow because it can result in advances on his part on my turn. But counterblows are part of the no retreat system, and you got to learn to work with them, work around them. Long story short, the battle in the D city that I can never pronounce, there was a counterattack back and forth. Eventually, he declined to continue the counterattack, which leaves me vulnerable to encirclement. And things rolled over to my turn. So basically, I grabbed my cards, checked my supply, and that unit is out of supply. So this is a dangerous situation. I don't have a lot of forces near there, unfortunately. That can help out, but we'll have to do what we can. So now I have a card or two that I'm going to use here. The first is to flip Sevastopol to lock that down, make sure that that's protected a little bit better, and going to pay a card to get the Moscow unit back. Now, ideally, I want to get that unit into Moscow so that I can flip it and fortify Moscow. I had to use another unit in its place, so might have been a misplay on my part, but at any rate, well, that's what we got to do. Then Stalino, we're going to reinforce with a couple of units, and I actually get my first shock markers, I think, in the whole game, which we're going to get an opportunity to use. Fortunately, I have another trick up my sleeve. I'm going to play a card to make him lose a step, and that is, in this case, displayed correctly on the Vassal module. So it's a Partisan's card. So he gets to choose which unit loses the step, and he's going to take it on the unit, the 18th Army in the north, which is probably the one which will do the least damage. Of course, I wish he'd chosen a Panzer unit, but you can't always get what you want. So now I get a chance to move, and I'm going to first of all take the one unit from the south, put it in the rail movement box. I'm getting enough units on the board now. I can kind of, put together a defense. I'm going to run away from the what is certain to be a counterblow in the north, and then I'm going to start to enact my plan to get the Moscow unit in place, so it can be fortified next turn. And we've got a decent front. There's still the possibility of a breakthrough, but we're kind of holding our own. And then, of course, the unit from Stalino, I have to do what I can to save that unit that is encircled. So I'm going to see what I can do there. Probably going to attract some sort of retaliation there, but hopefully not encirclement. And my only combat that I'm going to declare is on the unit there in the north, the Second Army. That's the only one that I'm going to attack. But it's nice to be able to be on the offensive for once. And this is where the large hand of the German player begins to have an effect as he places counterblow after counterblow after counterblow on me, which is really going to make it a challenge to hold the line here. This is going to be very hard to hold on to if I lose any of these battles poorly. My line might be in tatters by the end of it. We'll see how this goes. So we're going to do the attack near Kalinin first, right near Moscow. So I'm going to use a shock marker to shift things, and it's the first snow turn, so I get a bit of a bonus there. It ends up being a 3-2, which is an exchange, and that again just causes some casualties. It's very expensive to flip those German units back to full strength. So it does leave a gap in my line, but is probably not a bad result overall. Then where we're going to attack against we got to deal with these counterblows. So we'll do the battle with Northwest, and that's a 1-on-3, which ends up being a counterattack, which will be covered in a future log file. Then the Southwest unit here against that big stack basically ends up with a shock marker to a no effect result, which is, again, probably pretty good. I just need to survive. I need to keep this unit in Moscow long enough to fortify, and then I'll be in much, much better shape. And now the battle we've all been waiting for. Let's see if I can get this unit out of this situation. A roll, managed to get an exchange, do some damage on the 11th Army, but my unit dies out of supply. Probably the worst roll that I could have rolled, but at any rate, he gets a victory point there. Battle again in Kharkov. Little cadre that could attacking that big stack ends up with an exchange, and that means that he's going to lose a step on those on one of those pieces. Very likely it's going to be the 6th Army that'll take the hit, but that's fine. That's the little cadre that could, and that makes it, you know, a little bit harder for him to keep this momentum that he's been rolling with. So that's basically it for this turn, and basically I bring in a unit, the Crimean, to Kharkov from the rail box, just to shore that up again. Now the good news is, yes, I did lose that city probably, but once again, there's a line. I've got a line that's extending from the south to Moscow, and you know, in the north especially, his strength's a little bit depleted, which is excellent. So managing to hold my own as we get rid of the disorganized marker on the Moscow unit and end the turn. So all in all, managed to get some lucky rolls and do some damage, and hopefully it will be enough to carry forward into 1942, which is another tough year for the Russian side. But I'm encouraged so far. The plucky defenders have done a great job. This has been part 3 of an ongoing series, chronicling one of the best games I've played of No Retreat, the Russian Front. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. This has been Legendary Tactics.